Welcome back to episode 2.
Yes.
Session 2.
Yes.
Of Between
Sessions, which is 2 brown chicks trying to change the face of therapy on both sides of the couch.
Both sides of the couch.
Yes, both sides of the couch.
So we are here to discuss topics related to mental health, therapy, why people don't go to therapy, different types of therapy. We're going to have it all. And today we are going to discuss why doesn't insurance companies, why don't they want us to get therapy? And why don't they want us to be better?
Why don't they want us to be great?
They don't want us to be great.
Why don't they want us to be as dope as we can be, knowing that therapy is dope?
Right. So we are going to get into that topic first, just in case you don't know what Melanin and mental health is.
Yes.
Elisa, I'd like to let you explain everything.
Melaninandmentalhealth.com. If you haven't come out to visit our website, do it today. We are in the process of revamping that site. But essentially, Melanin and Mental Health, we are these 2 brown chicks who've created this movement, this resource for our communities, the Black and Latinx communities, to have more access to mental health awareness, to mental health resources. We have a directory that we are every day adding more therapists on there who are dope and who are committed to having our communities heal and grow. I was gonna side.
Go ahead.
Because we have a goal this year with that directory. And so we are in this mode this year of setting dope goals, getting dope results. Remember, that's Friday. But of really letting you all know what our dope goals are for this year.
Right.
And one of those goals is to build this directory to where we have, how many did we say? At least how many from each major metropolitan area?
We said between 10 and 20 for each major city. Of course, as many as we can get, because the more they're there, that's the more resources for the community as they are looking for therapists. But between 10 and 20 per major city would be a good place to start, because then when they reach out to those people, if they're not good fits, then at least they'll have their network to be able to tap into as well.
So we're looking for therapists in
major cities.
I keep saying Miami.
She wants us to go to Miami so bad. So if any therapist in
Miami, where you at?
Want us to come and do an event, let us know, because Elisa is down for it.
Miami, Los Angeles, New York, Denver, Atlanta,
LA,
Chicago,
San Francisco, Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago
They showed up and showed out.
Chicago represented.
They definitely did.
And I was, born and raised in Illinois, so but it's cold up there. But Chicago, Detroit, we want more of our, ideally, we really want to get someone from every state, right? Canada. Canada's we know we're, so we want to go international with this also. So we're challenging you, whatever state you're in, to show up, because we are getting people who are looking for you. They're looking for these therapists who are there, who want Black and brown Latinx communities, to really grow and heal, and to know that, yes, mental health is for us too.
Right. And as we become a resource for these communities, we want to be able to tell them where to go. We don't want them to come to us and say, okay, y'all are sending out all this information, and y'all are giving us such good information and news and making us feel more comfortable with the idea of therapy, but where do we go next? And so we want to make sure that we're able to direct them in the right place and have them go to the right people that can actually help them once they've made that decision to seek out therapy.
That's right. So remember, if you are a therapist in those areas, wherever you're at, contact us. We're going to get you on that directory, and we're going to get you on this podcast. We're going to get you on Facebook Live. Because we want to know where you're at, what you're doing. We want the community to know all these amazing ways that you are helping us heal and grow.
Right.
Man, we just totally diverted.
But this is the section of what we have going on. Along with that, as Elisa mentioned, we have our event this Friday in Houston. So if you're in Houston, you have 2 more days to get tickets.
Time's running out.
So it's running out. So please get your ticket to Dope Goals. Set dope goals, get dope results. It's going to be amazing. We have a photographer to get your headshots because your photos and everything you put out into the world is very important for you.
Yes.
We have them talking about
Selfies are
website,
cute,
right?
but not for your business
But
purposes.
you need a more professional picture.
You can be dope in a professional picture.
Right. They're talking about website, how to build your website.
Like if you felt overwhelmed, I don't know about you, but I felt overwhelmed when what should I put on my website? Even if you're not in private practice, but what do I put on my resume?
Right.
You know, how what are some interview skills? How do I take my career, my business, my life to the next level?
Right.
You know, you want to.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know where to start, and so we got you.
Yeah.
We have a crew
so many resources
of industry experts. Go to melaninandmentalhealth.com for that. The link is on there. It's on there, right?
Yeah, if they go to the events, they can just click on that and it'll be there.
The calendar events.
Yes. Or check out Melanin and Mental Health Facebook and Instagram. All the links are there as well. Twitter. So
we're trying to be everywhere.
We're trying to make sure it's easy for y'all to find us because we want to be that resource for you guys. Okay? All right, so getting into the topic. So today we're going to talk about why don't insurance companies want us to be great? Why don't they want us to go to therapy? Why is it so difficult to find therapists that are in network, or if you're sending therapists out of network, why you're struggling to get reimbursed or things like that.
Right.
So this topic stemmed from, like I said, a conversation we were having before. Somebody sent me a post saying like, Melanin Mental Health needs to post this. This is amazing. And actually, I'm going to read the post because I do think it's an amazing post.
It really was.
But then as we dug deeper into what she was talking about, it started to talk about just the difficulty of minorities to find help. So this is Reeseology on Instagram. It's Reeseology. And she put, yes, Black women should get therapy because we got a lot of shit to work through. But we should also have access to therapists who can deal with the complexities of our shit and delegitimize our pain. So when we saw that immediately, we're like, yes, that is what we want to do. We want to show that like it's okay to go to therapy. It's important that you go to therapy. It's important that you work on these things that you have been taught all these years and all these. We have so much put on us as Black and brown women that it's important that you seek the help to kind of let go of some of those things that are not meant for you, that are meant to destroy you, or
that you shouldn't be carrying.
You shouldn't be carrying.
You don't need to carry. That doesn't have to be a measure of your strength.
Right. What'd you say last time?
Don't let that be
the amount of pain you can take.
Yeah, that becomes this measure of your strength.
Right.
And no, like it. And we talked about last week of how it takes so much strength to say, hey, I need a break today.
Right.
Hey, I need help.
Right.
So yes, we're trying to change that narrative.
We're working on it.
We are working hard.
So we were like, oh, this is so amazing. That's such a great post. So we went back to her page just to kind of see what she was posting about. And she ended up in that post telling a story of her struggle to find a brown therapist. She talked about trying to go to the therapists that are on her campus. She's actually a doctoral student. And she struggled with trying to find someone on the campus that can identify with the struggles that she goes through as a Black woman. There were no Black women therapists there. There weren't even any minority women therapists there. Her first therapist that she got was a white man, and he kind of made some comments that made her uncomfortable. So then she asked microaggressions.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry,
sometimes they're not very micro.
Right. So there was some microaggressions in their conversation. So then she asked, well, if you don't have a Black therapist, which I know you don't, can you at least give me a brown therapist? Somebody that just is not white.
It understands the struggle.
And he said, let me call somebody real quick. He called somebody. You're going to go see doctor who's a white woman. So just completely ignored the fact that she needed somebody brown. But she's more culturally sensitive to, the things you have going. It was a word that he used. She's more culturally attuned, and she does well with these type of situations.
What does that even mean?
Right.
What does that
so somebody that's
mean?
walking into therapy that doesn't already feel comfortable going in, and you're like, oh, she can handle your type of situation.
She's culturally attuned.
Yeah. So needless to say, she was struggling. She didn't end up going back there. She looked for therapists on different directories, and it was just difficult for her to find someone who either was in her insurance or that was low enough for her to afford as a doctoral student. And I completely understand her pain.
Yes.
I completely understand her pain. When I was in grad school, one of my requirements from my supervisor, and she's amazing, was like, you got to go to therapy. And I was like, I'm good. I don't need therapy. I'm so well adjusted. She was like, no.
You need it even more than I thought you did.
She was like, you plan on being a therapist. One, that's the one thing. Like, you go and get your stuff together because you're going to be helping people with their stuff.
100.
But two, like, we go in every week. We talk about, I had an awesome supervisor. We talk about, of course, clients, but we also talk about personal stuff that may come up in session. We talk about my family history and things like that. And she was like, while these things may not look so clear to you right now or be as present to you right now, it's going to come up.
Right.
And so you need to go and find somebody to, help you. Process, to kind of work through those things before they just pop up in the middle of a session that you're working with somebody that's going through something similar that you went through, So point is, I started looking for a therapist. She was like, start with your insurance. I had a full-time job at that time, and she said, start with your insurance. Fine. Not fine.
No.
Could not find anybody. Based on being a student, I already had some knowledge of what I was looking for as far as a therapist.
Right.
It was not really anybody available. So then, of course, I went to looking for, sliding scale. I'm a student. I'm about to be an intern. I understand this whole sliding scale thing. I'm okay with working with an intern.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that they're trained. They have supervisors. Everything's great. I found a therapist who was a sliding scale, which was $40 a week, which for me, I had a full-time job. So it was, I could deal with that. And my insurance, actually, if I had went to a therapist through them, it would have been $40 anyway. So that worked out well.
Right.
I went to her for like 3 sessions. She was probably my age, white, very nice person. Could have been friends outside of therapy.
Yeah.
Just wasn't a good fit for me. I didn't feel like she really got into the nitty gritty. And I never attributed it to cultural until later.
Okay.
I never thought about it being like, oh, maybe that's why she didn't. Like, I would give her all these things and then she would just kind of bypass it and, like those things aren't that important. I was like, oh, maybe that's why.
Do you think that it was that she didn't think they were that important, or do you think she was like afraid to go there with you?
I'm not sure. It was more of a like sitting around talking to my friend than like somebody really pushing me and so maybe that's just her style.
Yeah.
But that's not what I needed.
That's not what you needed.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So went like 3 or 4 times and then I skipped a session and I skipped another session and then I didn't go back.
You know what though? And I don't mean to interrupt you, but
right.
I think that's a good point to, and part of why Melanin and Mental Health is trying to do what we're doing, and that is to give you this information about what you can look for in a therapist, and that just because the other person has more training and education,
right,
that yes, you knowing what it is that you need, like at the time, for whatever reason, you're like, but that's not necessarily what I needed. It
right.
wasn't until later that you're like, wait, I recognize now, hey, this is what was going on,
right, right.
So what would it have been like for you to be able to have that information at the time and, possibly, find somebody else? Because I think when people see our position as professionals, I know particularly like with my culture, a lot of times people, when I see like, Mexican, my Mexican clients that come in that maybe they are not English speaking. And so part of the culture is to really have this reverence and this respect for the professional and almost like, okay, well, tell me what to do, right? And that's not what therapy is. And so, you work with them and say, like, that's not really what I'm here to do. I'm here to help you have the process
right.
for you to be able to do this on your own, because, we don't want to keep people in therapy forever.
Right.
So that's part of what we're trying to do is,
right.
That's part of mental health awareness, of knowing
just that knowledge of what you need,
yeah,
what therapy is, what it isn't, when you're walking into it, kind of understanding what the expectations are,
right.
And of course, and that's part of why we do consultations,
right.
So you can have those expectations ahead of time, so you can know what when you walk in, you're not walking in completely blind,
right.
So I think it's difficult enough to find someone that, based on the picture, based on, whatever, that you're just like, okay, I feel comfortable with this person. And sometimes you don't even get that, because I feel like with that therapist, I didn't even get, it was like, I knew they had sliding scale, so I just booked an appointment. They were like, okay, when you get here, you'll meet your therapist. So I didn't even know who I was going to go see. I didn't know what to expect. But it was, like I said, it wasn't like a horrible experience. And I have had some horrible experiences, but it wasn't like a horrible experience. It just wasn't a good fit for me.
Yeah.
And so that's part of a struggle, right? Like I found someone I can afford. They're nice enough. So do I just keep going?
Right. Am I really getting what I need?
Right. And understanding how much of that is from the therapist perspective and how much of that is internal. Because it could have been me just not being ready for therapy, right? It could have been just me being like, I just don't want to do this. So, she could have been an amazing therapist. So I think it's so many things that go into it. And if you can at least break down that first barrier.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of what you're referring to, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that therapy is very much about the process, and there's a lot of moving parts with the process. And so it's not about that therapist. It's about what happens when I'm in this situation, in this space with this person, and we're together. What does that facilitate for my growth and my healing? And if you can think of it as, oh, this process right here is not right for me, I need a different process, then that may be easier, than, because I do think, just as humans, we're like, oh, is this person going to help us?
Right.
Yes, no, but it's the process that person helps facilitate between the two.
Right. Yeah.
Does that even make sense?
No, yeah, it does make sense. You're saying sometimes they're so focused on that one piece of it.
Yes, the therapist.
The therapist is but it's a whole, it's a lot of other parts that are part of it, which is good to know when you're going into therapy. You can't put all the, I don't want to say pressure necessarily, but you can't put all your hopes and dreams on the therapist.
Yeah, because there might be a black and brown therapist that you find, and they still don't facilitate the process that you need. Right. And so and I would say don't get caught up either, because it could work the other way. Like, well, I have, a black or brown therapist, and I should be able.
But that's just one piece of it.
Right. That's just, and part of what we're talking about is these other moving parts of us. That are such a big part of who we are, because of who we are, because of our culture, because of our experiences, because of our skin color, because of our last names, because of what side of town we live on. They have to be part of the process. Can that person work with that, acknowledge that, understand that on some level?
Right. Now that just made me think of another thing.
We just all over.
I know. So, I was actually yesterday. I was on IG, because IG. That's what. That's what everything. And I hope it's still on here. I don't think it is. There's a teen therapist that I follow. We follow each other, and she posted yesterday. It was in a magazine, and it was basically saying. No, it's not on here anymore. 24 hours on IG story. But it basically was talking about like working with teenagers, and it was saying how therapists need to do better than just referring out when it's something that's outside of their scope, right? And so like if you work with teens, but you don't specialize in minority teens, you don't just refer them out. You need to do better as a therapist as well. And so I think that's part of this conversation as well. Like just, we can't. Right now, the number of minority therapists versus the number of white therapists are complete. It's a big gap. It's a big gap. So, what are white therapists doing to make sure they are able to care for minority clients?
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't be just referred to the black therapist that you know. It shouldn't be just referred to the brown therapist that you know. Yes, that's part of it if you have it in your network. But what if you don't? Are you just going to let these people just fall by the wayside and not get the care that they need?
Yeah, and we get that question a lot. Like, does melaninmentalhealth.com, is it only for black and brown therapists? And the answer is we're here for people who are committed to our communities. Because even us, we still know that we're never going to stop learning, and that we always have to stay on top of our game, and we have to do better to be able to do better for our clients. So the answer is no. We're people who are committed to seeing, who understand that the greater collective also is dependent on our well-being. Their well-being is
dependent on us.
And when you're woke, Like, those are the people that we want, our communities to have access to.
Right. So we're not focused on skin color, because like you said, there are brown and black therapists that may not be good fits for minority communities for whatever reason. And so it's about the help that you can give to those communities.
Absolutely, and getting more of us represented, so that, the younger kids, they aspire to be dope therapists. The students in college and grad school thinking of, do I go into, therapy? Can you even make money in therapy?
And that's what I was just about to say when talking about the insurance companies. I feel like, or just insurance in general, when you look up the average amount of money that therapists make, we don't make a lot of money, like average.
Right. And I think that's part of what we talk about, like depending on how you set your goals,
right,
and what makes you a dope therapist, and that is really having all these different facets to who you are, all these different ways that you bring value to our communities. And that's part of what we're doing, is that we're saying, hey, as a therapist, there's a lot of ways that you can help. And so but that's one narrative, but that's not a narrative that you and I have bought into.
Right. Not you and I.
That's what I'm saying.
But when people on the outside are looking in, if somebody is trying to decide what their major is going to be,
right,
are they going to become a therapist? Right. Are they going to become a social worker? Any of those things.
Which are all, needed and respectable and have to be a part of this greater collective.
But when looking at earning potential, and when you're looking at, if you go to a document that says how much do these people make, it's not as appealing, right?
It's not as appealing, and I think part of that is because so many people who get into this profession, for the most part, we're in it because we want to help people. Right. We want to bring value to their lives. We want to help them heal and grow. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but I know in my program, there wasn't a lot of training around, this is also a business.
Right.
And whether you work for someone else or you work for yourself, we talked about that the other day, you're still providing a service of some level. And so how do you do that? How do you help your communities? How do you help the greater collective and still pay your bills?
Right.
And so, that's part of what we're trying to do.
Right, but that's also, so then you think about, do you get on insurance panels? Do you do private pay?
Right.
Do you do agency work?
Right.
Whatever options as far as career, as far as the life you want, and wanting to help the community.
Absolutely.
Because there's some, even for therapists, there's some guilt about, like, okay, I do private pay, which means I have to charge more than insurance. Well, don't say have to, but I tend to charge more than insurance would pay me, because I value my time this way. But then am I really able to help the communities if I'm charging so much money, which I feel like is what she was kind of getting at. Is she's looking for a therapist. She only can afford so much money a week or a month or whatever. And so with me knowing my budget, how do I find a therapist that's a competent therapist, a good therapist, somebody that's able to help me, but is also affordable?
Yeah. I think that's part of what has to be part of the conversation and what we're working on to find other solutions about. And I think that's part of what melaninmentalhealth.com is trying to do, as far as really changing the game when it comes to therapy, when it comes to who's represented in therapy, not just on the level of what we look like, but, getting more, we have a lot of women in therapy, getting more men into therapy, but also showing how you can also make your passion, because we're very passionate about what we do, have it be something that does provide so that you can continue to help more in more ways. The more I'm able to easily pay my bills, the more accessible I am to find different alternative ways, alternative solutions to help my communities. I think it's when we get stuck in, it has to be this way. Clearly, that's not working on some level.
Right.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right.
So part of changing the mental health game is getting more people in mental health on both sides of the couch that look like us, and also being in business, being in business that is that promotes mental health and mental wellness, and getting, different organizations and nonprofits out in the front lines to be able to say, these are all these different solutions that we have for our communities. Does that make sense?
No, you're saying that right now, the way things are going, it's not working for everybody, right? So therapists have to charge more because we have to pay our bills, we have to do certain, take care of our responsibilities. But then clients that can't afford it may not be able to find therapists that look like them.
Right. And it's clearly right now it's not working as effectively as it should for our communities. And so that's why we have to find up and come up with innovative ways. We have these different directories. I love that we have a variety of directories now that are focused on, hey, we see you and we want to be part of the conversation. We want to be part of your growth and healing. I really feel like we're on the cusp of things shifting.
Right.
And I think it begins with having these conversations that, someone is going to get sparked with an idea of what else can we do and what else can we do. So maybe the answer is we're in the process of figuring out what those other solutions are.
But for the people that need it right now.
For the people that need it right now, so yes.
Right, because I think that's the question.
What are some of the options?
We're moving in a direction to try to figure out different options and different ways to provide these services and to make it more accessible. But when we're talking about, okay, today I am looking for a therapist and I cannot find a brown therapist. I think number one, and this is difficult, because I do 100% understand the value of having someone that looks like you sitting across from you.
Yes.
There's nothing, like, I get it.
Yes.
But like you said earlier, that doesn't mean that just because they look like you that they're going to be able to help you. And so I think that there unfortunately at this point will have to be some compromise of, what am I really working on? And can my therapist be aware? Like, we know some dope therapists that are not black or brown, right? That I would have no issue with sending my clients to.
No.
Now again, that you have to maybe reach out to the therapist and see who they know and things like that.
So step one, interview the potential therapist.
Yeah.
Interview. Call them up, ask them questions that you want answered in a certain way.
Right.
Get a feel. Ask them, so how comfortable are you talking about culture and race within the therapy room? See how they respond to that. If they're like, oh, okay, well,
I gotta refer you out. If they say I have to refer you out, then that's not.
Just say, I'm referring myself.
That's okay. I'll find somebody
else.
That's
right.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think as therapists, I think when I was thinking about insurance, I feel like if you're on an insurance panel, you may not be putting yourself out there to be advertised as much because you get so many clients through your insurance panel. Yes. So how are you, if you are on it? Because like when I look through, some of the directories you can find people and you can list them out and filter based on their insurance. But a lot of times, do I really need to invest in marketing? Because that's the whole point of me being on the insurance panel, right? Because I can fill up because in all honesty, you fill up your clientele a lot quicker when you're on the insurance panel. And so are you putting yourself out there as a therapist saying, like, I am a therapist that takes this insurance, so that it becomes easier for your clients to be able to find you?
So your clients also, and I think we kind of skipped over why don't some therapists take insurance.
Yeah.
But so call your insurance company and ask them, so who is in network? Who are the and then
most of them have an online portal of some sort.
Yes. And then do a little online research, call them up, get a feel for them. Also find out from your insurance plan what do they allow. Sometimes they only allow like a certain number of sessions. You have to reach a certain deductible. They cover certain, services. Some they don't. So find that piece out to even find out if it's worth using your insurance company. And sometimes some find out what your out-of-network benefits are. Because sometimes maybe the clinician you want is not in network, the therapist you want is not in network. They might be out of network. And so that means sometimes you're depending on your out of network benefits, if you have them, they'll give you maybe up to a percentage, back. A lot of times those out-of-network benefits, you'll be responsible for your billing, but your therapist will provide you with the paperwork for that. You submit it to your company. Find all that out. Then, after that, so why don't some of us
That's what I was about
take
to ask.
it?
Yeah.
I can only speak for me. Before I was a therapist, I owned a family business that was a medical equipment company, durable medical equipment, and a great portion of our payers were insurance. So I learned about the headaches. It's sad. It can really make or break sometimes so for example, if we provided service for a certain piece of equipment in 2000, and then you might get a letter in 2001 that says, oh, you know what, we made a mistake about that equipment, which has already been delivered, which the patient, you don't know where they're at,
right?
And we want our money back. So for me personally, I learned that. Now, because of that, I offer an alternative program for clients who are highly motivated. They don't have the resources, but they're willing to invest something into their therapy. And so I have an alternative program for some people. It's called the Committed to Healing program, to compensate for that.
Right.
Some clinicians offer sliding scale, but what about you? What is your reason for not taking insurance?
So I don't take insurance for several reasons. I used to do Medicaid, which, let me just say, they do have a pretty simple system as long as the person is covered by Medicaid.
Right.
If they're not, you get paid nothing. But it's an online system. You go in, you just fill in a little thing, and then you send off, and they send you your money 2 weeks later. So Medicaid, I think, was a good place to start. But you also have to understand when people are paying nothing for therapy, that level of commitment sometimes isn't there. And not saying all the time, but
right.
I've worked my internship. We did sliding scale, so I've had clients that paid $20 a week or $10 a week, up to like $60 a week, and depending on their financial situation or how they present it, that determined how much they paid. But then I noticed a completely different level of commitment for clients that can get very, very, very low versus having to pay out of pocket at a higher rate. It's a completely different level of commitment. Also, the insurance sometimes require more information than I feel comfortable with. So you have to do notes. You have to send them your notes.
Yeah.
You have to diagnose clients. You have to give them a diagnosis for them to continue to come to see you. A lot of therapists, try to do like a simple diagnosis, but sometimes some insurance is like, okay, with that diagnosis, they only need 4 sessions. They determine how many sessions you get.
Yeah.
They determine how quickly you should be working. They want to know how you do therapy, and so
it's less about process.
It's less about the relationship between you and the client, and more about, does this make sense for us to pay for this? Like, how can you make this make sense?
That being said, I know a lot of therapists who they take insurance and it works for them, and it works perfect for their practice and how they're doing it. Right. So
I think for me and the life that I want to live, where I do have these different projects, where I can have a private practice, where I can do Melanin and mental health, where I can have my other podcast. I know for me, I just have never been a 9-to-5 person.
Yeah.
And taking insurance, to me, and I know it's not necessarily the same thing, sounds too much like I have to do 15 hours of paperwork for these 20 clients, and then I have to, send all this, I have my records in order. I take care of everything I need to do. I just don't necessarily feel comfortable having that third party in the business of what I have one-on-one with me and my client.
I got you.
As well as the reimbursement, the rates, it for the amount of work that you tend to have to do. If I see a client for an hour, and then I spend an hour trying to get in contact with the insurance company, spend an hour trying to get paid with the billing, I end up getting paid way less than what my master's degrees cost. So,
and I think what you're saying really is about, we have a finite amount of hours and energy in a day.
Right.
And, some therapists, that works for them, and kudos to them, because like I said, I know a lot of therapists who make that work really well.
Right.
I think just the way that you and I, are kind of saying is we also have these other projects that are also part of helping our communities heal and grow that we wouldn't have the time, the energy, the hours for, because we also have lives outside of business, to be able to dedicate to those projects had we also be managing the billing, managing the insurance,
Right.
and all that. So it just really depends,
You have to be self-aware as a therapist. I think I'm self-aware to know how many hours in a week I
Right.
can work, and I can send clients to be my best for my clients.
Right.
I know what type of activities I need to do to be at my best for my clients.
Sure.
And so if I have to work 50, 40 hours, or see 20 to 25 clients in order to make enough money to pay my bills, have to spend another 20 hours working on billing, and not be able to do those other things that also bring me joy, I won't be at my best.
Right.
And so me being aware of myself, that is the decision I've made. Now, like you, I am definitely, while I don't have, which I haven't thought about adopting that since we've talked about that before, but I don't have necessarily like a scholarship program or anything like that. I have had conversations with somebody when I feel like you're really motivated,
Absolutely.
and I can tell that you are very interested and that you are committed to this, then we can discuss it. But sometimes that means you have to come in and see me 2 or 3 times before I'm like, oh, okay, I see where you're at.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can figure out.
And I think it's also important to note that we are tapped into a network of resources.
Right.
Which, that's why melaninmentalhealth.com is so important to us, because we want to know who we're referring to. We want to know, like, okay, maybe I can't help you with this, but, like, for example, I have colleagues, maybe like out on the west side of town, and I know they do sliding scale, and I know they do amazing work, and I have no issue referring you to them because I know that they're going to take care of you. So I tell clients all the time, I am not the end all be all.
Right.
And I mean that. And part of me not being the end all be all means that I also work really hard to be tapped into other resources, to know what the other resources are in town, because if I can't help you in the process of therapy, I'm going to help you find another alternative.
Right.
And that is what a therapist can sometimes do for you as well. But just, you can kind of see the conversation, how it's kind of consumed us about insurance. That's why sometimes it's tricky for therapists who, it's not impossible, because like I said, I have a lot of colleagues who've made it very easy. It's just trying to kind of figure out how to make that work, and then depending on that therapist. But we have all alternative solutions for you, and part of what we're doing with melaninmentalhealth.com is building more resources for our communities.
Right. So our goal is to have a resource page where if you can't afford therapy, that there are some resources of scholarships that you can apply for to help you pay for therapy, or there are alternatives in your town of, how can I do this? I know that I think that there are so many different things all happening right now, kind of like you said. There's so many people trying to find these different ways to do it. And it is about what you're comfortable with. So once you find something that works, we need to share it with our communities. And so that's our goal, is to find as many resources and many options as we can. If you just have to decide what you need, what works for you, and then unfortunately there is a little bit of work to go into finding that good fit.
Yes, I would say, if your goal is healing, if your goal is therapeutic, the therapeutic process, be open to what that's going to look like.
Right.
Be open to how you can facilitate that. I think as we provide more resources and more solutions and have the conversation about what's out there and what's worked for some people, what's worked for other people, that's going to open up your mind as to, so it doesn't have to be X, Y, Z. Right? There's all these different paths. We just didn't know about it. We just didn't know they were there. We just don't know how to access them. And that's why we're working so hard, and we're so passionate about getting more dope therapists and dope agencies and dope resources to contact us so we can let our communities know.
Right.
Yes, there are options. There are options. Just, I would say, be open to the possibilities
Right.
of how this will look. Because, yes, the way that it is right now hasn't been in our favor.
Right. And it could just be it hasn't been because we just don't know.
And because we weren't necessarily...
It wasn't designed for us.
At the table.
It wasn't designed for us.
It wasn't designed for us. Healing was not designed for us. It was not. That's a whole other, but that's the reality.
Yeah.
Our healing was not the priority.
Right.
Outside of our communities, and
Right.
sometimes even within our communities.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of what we're working on is, okay, we're not going to be looking outside of us anymore
Right.
for our healing. We are going to empower ourselves from within our communities
Mm-hmm.
to begin to heal and grow, because damn it.
Who benefits if we aren't healed? Who benefits if we can't?
Not us.
But
There are people who
but
benefit.
people benefit. People benefit when you don't better yourself.
That people benefit when you get so frustrated that you can't find a therapist and you say, F it.
Right. I'm just going to continue to live my life in the way that I've been living it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why we are doing that's why these two brown chicks are trying to change the mental health game and change the face of therapy on both sides of the couch, because we want not only for us to come up with solutions, but to have you all
right.
come up with solutions, and the people that you inspire to come up with solutions, and so on and so on and so on and so on.
So let us know in the comments if you're watching the video or if you're listening to the audio. Let us know what are resources for those that are struggling to find
Yes.
a therapist that A, looks like them, and B, is in a price range that they can afford.
And if you don't look like them, tell us why you're committed to their growth and healing.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us where you are. Like, seriously, drop
Yeah.
your information in the comments. Tell us where you are, what you specialize in, and tell us why you are changing the mental health game for Black and Latinx communities.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really that's where we had that conversation at lunch that time.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
literally
Looking
sat
for
down and
people.
said, where are all the other Black and brown therapists?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where are all the other people looking out for us?
Mm-hmm.
And so we knew they were there. We know they're there.
We've met so many.
We have.
Yeah.
And we also knew on some level that those Black and brown therapists looking out for our communities had to begin here.
Right.
Had to begin here.
Right.
And so Starbucks must have put extra espresso.
You are on 10. No. All right, guys. That is it for this episode of Between Sessions. Just so you know, we are on Stitcher, Google Play, and SoundCloud. We still have a couple more weeks before we get on iTunes, but we are everywhere else that you listen to podcasts. If we are not, let us know and we will get there. So let us know where you listen to your podcast so we can make sure we're on those platforms. Of course, follow Melanin and Mental Health across all social media. It's Melanin and Mental Health everywhere except on Twitter, where it's Melanin Health.
Melanin Health on Twitter.
Please come out Friday. If you haven't bought your ticket already, get it so we can,
Friday, remember, come out if you've been frustrated with, every year your resolutions don't make it past February.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they haven't even made it past the third week.
We 11 days
We
in.
are going to have a crew of experts who specialize in change, be it for your websites, for your personal goals, business goals. We're going to have a photographer on site who's going to replace your really cute selfie with a professional headshot. And of course, we're going to have food.
Right.
And
good
drinks
food. Really good food.
And music, because that's
Yes.
what we do. Because we know
we hanging out.
we know you can be productive and still have fun.
Yes.
It does not have to be boring.
Yes.
So come out. Check out melaninandmentalhealth.com. Sign up for the directory if you are a dope therapist. You get 3 months free.
Mm-hmm.
We are revamping that site.
Mm-hmm.
Our goal, help us meet our goal of having clinicians across the U.S. in every major city, because we want our communities to know that you're there. You're there for the women of color, the men of color, the children of color, all of us. Like, we want to collectively heal and grow. So check us out. Join us next week.
Yes.
I won't have as much espresso in my coffee.
Dallas, we got 2.5 weeks. We'll be in Dallas on the 26th. And I think that's it. Go to shop.melaninandmentalhealth.com and get our dope shirts.
Self-care is sexy.
Melanated therapist, if you are a therapist. I think that's it.
All right.
All right. Bye.